Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special press clips edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, May 24th, and I'm very pleased to welcome back to the program friend, colleague, super columnist, woman of many hats, Starshine Roshell, one of those people in Santa Barbara known primarily by her first name, which is when you know you've arrived. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm living the dream. Hey, so those loyal viewers recall you were last on the program August 2021. And we talked about a couple of things. One, you were then pivoting from being a columnist to doing things with a little more advocacy in them. And you had started doing something called newsrooms to classrooms to combat disinformation and misinformation. Talk a little bit about what that is, and then we'll discuss kind of what's happened recently with you.
Yeah. So after January 6th, I think I mentioned on last time, which it's been a minute since I've been on here, I started looking for ways that I could possibly help people better discern actual good information from, let's call it poppycock. And I did some research and I learned some things and I did some studying up on my own, and I ended up joining, volunteering with this amazing organization called the News Literacy Project. And they have a specific program called Newsroom to Classroom, where journalists can volunteer to go teach kids in local schools how to, the importance of credible journalism and how to discern good sources from bad, and how to not fall victim to misinformation.
Yeah, and you've been doing that in a number of places, including Beverly Hills High. We should point out big program coming up with the Rotary Club. But in recent days, you've sort of gone from this one man band to you got partners now, and you got money, and you're expanding it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the local Association of Women in Communication, and there I have befriended Lisa Osborn from KCSB Radio and Amy Maria Orosco, who a lot of people know from local magazines. She's been editor of quite a few local publications, and we all wanted to do something about this. So we submitted a grant to the AWC National chapter, and we got it. So we were given a $10,000 grant to teach this stuff to anyone who will listen, basically, like help people understand, especially right before the election. It's critical to really be able to discern fact from fiction, to sort, like I said, good information from stuff that's coming at you with an entirely different purpose, not to inform you or even amuse you or entertain you, but really to, with the purpose of confusing you and duping you and just, sort of dividing us and persuading us and selling to us.
So it's basically a form of critical thinking,
Right.
is kind of put over this vast, sprawling media landscape, which who knows what it is anymore. As a practical matter, what does it look like on the ground? Talk a little bit about what you do when you go to a classroom or another venue, and what are some of the kinds of things that you are trying to put out there.
Well, when you talk about misinformation or disinformation, and the difference between those, people seem to know about Russia trying to, put up memes that are confusing and make us think things that aren't true. And we all sort of saw what happens when a megalomaniacal presidential hopeful puts out bad information.
And
But
we
I
may
think,
get to see again, yes.
yeah, we very well may. Um, and of course, now with artificial intelligence, it's even harder to discern, what's real and what's not. It used to be, oh, I saw it with my own eyes, or I heard it with my own ears, and that's not a thing anymore. Um, but I think what few people realize is none of those are the worst thing about misinformation. We're the worst things, right? You and me, anybody on social media, we spread misinformation like wildfire. We don't necessarily create it. We're not doing it on purpose, but by engaging with bad information on social, like liking it, sharing it, reposting it, commenting on it, giving it engagement, we are spreading that misinformation. And that's where I really like to start, especially with people who are new to the concept of like, you know, how do we question what we see, what we read, what we hear? And then how do we actively check on stuff before we share it so that we're not responsible for spreading it?
Yeah. I mean, you and I are both old enough to remember when there was a daily newspaper in town, and it, just in terms of public affairs, represented the public square in the sense that there was a shared sense of reality, a shared sense of facts. And I guess ever since the first Sunday after Trump's inauguration, when Kellyanne Conway went on the TV and famously proclaimed Trump's right to have, quote, alternative facts.
Right.
Uh, that's, it's been falling apart. I mean, it's just people, just don't have a lot of sources to go for kind of unbiased information. Increasingly, we live in these silos. What do you find, particularly when you talk to young people? They don't even maybe have a, a definition of news, as in I'll go to the newspaper or I'll go to the television. News is just kind of what comes across your TikTok feed or something like that. No?
Exactly. I mean, a huge percentage of Americans get their news on social media now. And it might be from a news source posting on social media, but it might not. And then there's something called pink slime, which I think is a funny term. A lot of people have heard the term in terms of like that nasty sort of fake meat that fast food places use to beef up their burgers. But now the term pink slime is being used to describe another kind of fake product, which is like highly partisan websites that mimic news outlets, right? They look like a news website if you don't know what to look for, but they have a pointed agenda, and they sometimes hide their ties to special interests and lobbyists and things like that. And there are an equal number of pink slime sites and local news websites in the US at the moment. There's about 1,200 of each. So it's understandable why people don't know where to go and what to look for when they want good information. I've been surprised that when I've talked to high school students about this issue, the problem isn't that they believe the things that they're seeing come across their social media platforms. The problem, in fact, is that they just don't believe anything. Like they are appropriately cynical and distrusting, and in a way that's good, because you're like, I don't want you to believe everything you see, and they're like, oh, we don't believe anything. You could tell us the truth and we wouldn't know it. And so that's a different kind of problem, right? We do need to have good information. I mean, as well as I do that our very form of government was founded on the idea that citizens are informed and that we know what we're doing when we go to the voting booth. It's important. And if we can't trust information, how can we make good decisions in that moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your comments are kind of a callback to the column you wrote about this a couple of years ago, quoting Hannah Arendt, the German political scientist and philosopher. She said, what makes it possible for a totalitarian or other dictatorship to rule is that people are not informed. If everybody always lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but rather that nobody believes anything any longer. And a people that no longer can believe anything cannot make up its mind. It's deprived not only of the capacity to act, but of the capacity to think and to judge. And with such people, you can
do with
you
what you
please. Well,
will.
that's a happy
I
forecast.
have chills every time I read that. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
scary.
it's true. And thinking, it's more this chaos of information that's rather than a particular kind of spin. I mean, we know what that's like, and everybody sort of always discounted for that. But 70% of Republicans in the United States believe that Joe Biden was not legitimately elected. I mean,
Cannot be true. I'm gonna question that information.
that is, it's in CNN
Source,
poll.
please. Source,
CNN
please.
poll, August of 2023. Yeah.
That's depressing.
Yeah. And 17% of all voters believe that Joe Biden is responsible for doing away with Roe v. Wade. So isn't the problem really that we live in a nation of stupid people?
I mean, listen, I don't think it's about stupidity. I think it's about laziness, because the things that you can do to to get good information, they're available. They're out there. It's not like there's no one doing good fact checking. More places than ever. There's entire organizations devoted just to fact checking, which is great. I think it's a wonderful job. I couldn't do it, but I'm so glad they're there. The problem is that we are flooded with so much information every single day that it's really hard to turn on your critical thinking at every single thing that that you scroll past. um, there's great journalism being done, as you know, and there's fewer newspapers than there used to be, but there's private organizations like ProPublica and amazing podcasts that are doing great work. So I'm not doom and gloom so much about journalism as I know I think you are, but you have to be willing to do the work to look into things, or you have to be willing to not engage with it.
Give us a couple examples of the types of things that you recommend or suggest in your presentations that people can do to check the information they're getting.
Yeah. One of them is really just sourcing your news. Do some lateral reading. If you're on a website and you don't recognize that website and you want to know if it's legit or if they're doing good work. And let me just set a baseline here. When I talk about legit and credible information, I'm talking about places that like journalistic organizations, have ethical tenets by which they report their information. They're doing things like, aiming to be unbiased, to be fair, to be transparent and accountable, to do no harm. All of the basic Society of Professional Journalists creed. And not everybody who does news does a good job at that all the time, right? We fail sometimes, but that's another thing. Publishing corrections, admitting when you're wrong, those kinds of things. Organizations that don't follow those minimal standards are just not trustworthy, and they're probably trying to sell you something or persuade you, or they have a dog in the fight in some way. So if you're on a website and you don't know whether they're that kind of website, leave the website. It's called lateral reading. You just go to Google and you ask Google about that website and you see what comes up. And you can sometimes find out that they are owned by a particular organization that has a particular bent, that has a desire for you to believe a certain thing. And then you can say, well, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. There's an amazing tool called a reverse image search on Google. It's super easy. You don't have to be tech savvy to work it. You can take any picture, drag it into the Google search bar, and it'll show you everywhere on the internet where that same picture exists. And that's a great way to find out if you see like a celebrity wearing an outrageous t-shirt and you think, really, did they wear that t-shirt in public? They probably didn't. If you drag the picture into Google, it'll show you the original t-shirt that the person was wearing that someone photoshopped a different saying over. Another thing people do is during like natural disasters and things like that, where they really want to know what's going on right now and they're scrolling, looking for any information, is if you see something wild, go find another source for that headline or that piece of news. You and I know news organizations are extremely competitive. There's not going to be some amazing, outrageous thing that happens in the news that only one outlet reports. People lose their jobs over that kind of thing, right? So if someone else isn't reporting it, probably not a thing. And then the really important thing that I try to teach, from kids on up, is being aware of your emotions when you come across something online. There's something called rage bait, and I love that name, but basically it's just like any post that makes you feel fear, makes you feel anger, makes you feel outrage. because when we have those particular strong emotions, it activates our caveman brain, and we can't sort of think logically. We just react, and we'll share it, and we'll post, this makes me so angry. And then it spreads because it's designed to, right? So if you see a post that stokes your baser caveman brain, pause, do 30 seconds of research. And if you say to me, Starshine, I'm busy, I'm not going to do that, that's fine. You don't have to do any of these things, but then you can't engage with them. You can't have it both ways. You can't like it, share it, comment, reshare it, post it, whatever, and not do the research. If you don't want to do the research, just move on along.
Of course, there's a lot of people who, I mean, they get their news from a particular source because it keeps them enraged.
Yeah.
With carrying a sense of grievance or whatever it is. It's a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that you never have to read or look at anything with which you disagree on
Exactly.
the internet. And that's the part of the problem. Hey, we've been talking about disinformation, misinformation. Explain the difference between those two words.
Yeah. So misinformation is something that you come across and you share it not knowing that it's false. So I do this regularly. Everyone does it. You see something and you go, oh, that's interesting. You share it and somebody goes, that's not true. Oops. It happens even to me, and I'm not coming at this from on high saying like, why aren't you all better at this? It's hard. It's hard to do. And I'm guilty of it too. Disinformation is a different thing. That's information shared with the knowledge and intent that it's false. Yeah, I'm not going to go back to January 6th, but there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons why someone would want to share something false. Frankly, satire has been confused as disinformation. Places like The Onion that I love that post these really funny, headlines just to kind of make a social commentary, sometimes can be confused for actual news, and people share it and be like, can you even believe this? There was a woman recently who posted, just to be funny, she had AI create a Happy Meal with a demon on it, and it had like a devil burger, and it came with a demon toy inside of it, and she posted it to be funny. And of course, some people thought it was real. It wasn't clear. She didn't make it clear that it was a joke. And it went out like wildfire, and people were outraged. But a simple Google image search would have shown you that that was nonsense.
So is it fair to say that most of the presentations that you've made to date have been with school students? With
No,
students? No?
I've done a lot of adults too. I spoke at Laguna Blanca. That's a school, but I spoke at UCSB Professional Women's Association recently. I've spoken to the Association for Women in Communication. I've spoken to the PR Society of America.
And what
Yeah.
is the reaction that you get overall? Do you find that people are saying, "Oh, you're just part of the deep state, and here is more evidence of the conspiracy that's out to eat our children's faces and so on," or I mean,
Not to my face, but I no, usually, I'm invited to these places. I don't just show up with my slides. Let me on there. No. So these are people who want to learn, and it's heartening to me. Not everybody wants to learn, but I feel like, learning small things that you can do is empowering. It's easy to want to give up and just say like, oh, we'll never know what's true anymore. But that's not actually accurate. That's misinformation at this point.
All right, so you're partnering up with Amy Orosco and Lisa Osborn, and you got a grant. How can people contact you all if they're interested in your wares?
Yeah, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email us. Our project's called Moment of Truth. And you can email us at learn@momentoftruthtraining.org.
Learn at Moment of Truth
Training.org.
That just
It's a
rolls right off
mouthful.
the tongue, doesn't it?
You can definitely just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Starshine Roshell.
Yeah, you guys need to simplify that address.
Yeah, it's a long one.
All right, let me ask you some a little more personal things. So, your legions of fans who voted you the most popular columnist in Santa Barbara 11 years running until you had to actually campaign for Nick Welsh, who's now never shuts up about it. Be that as it may, any plans for a comeback for the column? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I'm writing occasionally. It's much more occasionally than it used to be. I just kind of don't want to repeat myself, and I don't want to write just for the sake of writing. I want to write when I have something to say that I think people will enjoy and that's maybe valuable to the community. But you know, I have a job that I really love right now that's very intellectually challenging, and I'm exhausted at the end of the day. So sitting down to write a column isn't what I always want to do anymore. But yeah.
And what is that job? Talk about the work you do at LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm a content producer for LinkedIn Learning. So I produce video courses on everything from, business and technical skills, DEI, communication, organizational development, things like that, things that professionals need to up level to the next, to get a promotion, to learn something for their job, things like that. And so I work with subject matter experts all over the world to help develop their scripts and then to storyboard their scripts. And then I work with graphics and editing. And then I'm on set when we shoot it. It's a lot of fun. I really like it. And it's scratching that creative itch right now.
And it's fact-based, I guess, which is
yes,
part of the natural
yes.
connection to.
You know that if I'm involved, I will not let anyone put anything into their scripts that's not true.
All right. Well, just as we close, I just want to throw out a few depressing numbers that are connected to this. NBC had a new poll out last week talking to voters and other people about where they get their information, where they get their news. 54% said they get it from traditional sources, i.e. newspapers, network TV. 40% said they get it all online. Of those who get it traditionally, Joe Biden leads by 11 points, 52 to 41. If those who digital, it's a tie, it's a toss-up, 47-47. And people who don't follow the news favor Trump 53 to 27 by 26 points. So it's not only the case of getting the wrong stuff, sometimes it's the case of getting nothing at all, or the last thing that you heard. I just have to feel and say again, I just think education is the biggest dividing line in American politics today. And people who tend to want to educate themselves and learn new things, such as the things that you and Amy and Lisa are putting out, are doing us all a service, I think. And the rest of them, don't vote, please. Go home, stay home. Don't.
Well, I mean, it's just a little tiny drop in the bucket, but it makes me feel good to be able to share this stuff with people, because some of it is something I didn't know. And I feel like it's helped me clear the boards of all the muck that shouldn't be on my social. I'll leave you with a fun fact too. Have you ever heard the quote, a lie can get halfway around the world while the truth is still putting its boots on?
Yes, and it's not Mark Twain.
That's right. It's attributed to Mark Twain that's misinformation.
Who actually said that? Do you know?
I cannot find it. I've been through so many quote fact
there's
checkers.
so many Mark Twain quotes that you can't. Who knows where they came from?
It sounds like him, but
it's
I just love
the coldest summer I ever spent, or the coldest winter I ever spent, was summer in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah, whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting over. No, he didn't say that either.
Hey, I want to thank you for what you do, because there's not enough. I know, I'm serious, because the reporting and information that you're sharing with everybody is so valuable. And I feel like we're miles above other communities because we have someone like you bringing that to us. So thank you.
That's very nice of you to say, because I mean, the work that you're doing, it's easier to sort that all out about national stuff or global stuff, what's going on. On the local level, there are just so few sources that it's sometimes makes it more difficult. And
Yeah.
From my perspective, as someone who's covered politics for 40 years, the problem is the main source of information starts to come from electeds and politicians rather than from third-party neutrals. And we're really,
Right.
that goes to, I think, the pink slime a point that you were making earlier. All
Yeah, I
right.
hope you can incorporate pink slime into a sentence this week
Oh,
on
I
all
think
y'all watching.
I may put it in the headline, Starshine. I don't know.
Perfect.
Barely possible. You think you think people will click on it? I'll do anything. Yeah. All right, Starshine Roshell, you're doing the Lord's work on this stuff. We really appreciate it, and thanks for coming on Press Clips Edition, where we try to highlight the work that people are doing in the news and information space in Santa Barbara. Thank you all for watching. Thanks again, Starshine, and we will see you again next time. Take care.
Thank you.